Hello, this is Daniel with Unrivaled Investing. Today, I am very excited to talk about C Limited. Ticker is SE. Several Journey subscribers, several YouTube subscribers have all said, please, please, please make a video. Here it is. I promised that by month end I would do it. Here you go. This is it. The stock has been on a tear. It's up several 100% in just the last year. So, what's this all about? So, first, let's do a little walkthrough of what we're going to see in this video. So first is, what is C Limited? What's the ticker is SE. We need to understand each segment. We're going to get into that in a little detail in a minute of like, hey, in order to parse this out, you need to understand that there are multiple different pieces to this. What's the opportunity? Is there 10x potential here? Because hey, the investment game I'm playing, look, everyone can play their own investment game. The investment game that I'm looking to play is big game. I want to own things for years, decades, where I can have hundreds or even thousands of percent upside. I'm not looking for swing trades or day trades where I make a couple percent. I'm looking for the big game. And do they have an unrivaled value proposition? We'll get to why that's important in a second. And then teaser thoughts on valuation. That's going to be the reality. I'm going to leave that up to you to think about, because the purpose of this video is the meat and potatoes. I'm going to save the ice cream and the cherry on top for the Journey subscribers. That said, there's going to be a lot here to go through. I'm definitely not going to be able to go through everything about C. Like, there's just so much to digest here. There's a lot of exciting stuff. I mean, just think about it. You're talking about the Amazon Alibaba of Southeast Asia. I mean, that's the hint for you right there. I mean, think of all the things Amazon's doing. Think about all the things Alibaba is doing. But before digging in, a little disclosure in that I personally own C stock. My cost basis is around $33. I bought it last year. At the time of this video publication, it's up, almost 400%. And I need to give you like a big warning. Like, not all the stocks I'm going to buy are going to go up this fast in such a short time. Like, that's not the game I'm playing. If it works out, then great. That means I've gotten a double whammy of fundamentals and valuation. But normally I'm focused on like, hey, what are the fundamentals going to do year to year, and how can I underwrite that? And if I can get some sort of valuation boost, that's great as well. That said, if you want to see, what are the multi-baggers that I am buying in any given month? What are the things I'm holding? I'm going to sit tight on. I'm like, you can't take these shares away from me. And what am I selling? What am I trimming in any given month? Go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on Journey. That way you can see what I'm personally doing. And the reality is, all it takes is one multi-bagger, one stock that potentially goes up hundreds or even thousands of percent to change your personal life journey. So if you're interested, follow my personal journey. Go to unrivaledinvesting.com. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, hit that thumbs up button. It certainly helps with the viewer analytics. Also, I love it when you post questions. A lot of people were asking me about this video, and that's the reason why I ultimately did it, is because so many people were saying, Daniel, please do it. So here it is. I love getting the comments of like, hey, your videos are super educational. Can you please do this one? I'm struggling with it. And then I'm happy to make it happen. So in order to understand C, first, let's take a step back. Like, stocks are not just digital pieces of paper that move up and down. We're not just trading things. We're looking to own fundamental businesses. So you need to understand that in order to figure out what a stock is worth, it's not just that stock price. You need to understand the fundamentals. And with C, you need to understand that there's at least three segments here. There's some other smaller ops, but let's focus on these three core things with Garena, Shopee, and SeaMoney. And so this definitely makes analyzing this company much trickier, because you do have three core segments in which to value. Each are very unique businesses, and that's why I'm not going to be able to cover everything in this video. I'm going to cover a lot. Don't get me wrong. You're getting the meat and potatoes in this. If you're a vegan, maybe it's like some seitan and some almond milk or something. I don't know what the right vegan comparison is, but you get what I'm saying. You're getting a lot here. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you have a good understanding of what C is and what their potential is in the years ahead. So let's go into each of these segments, so that way we can get an understanding, and so we can start underwriting C as an investment to understand what are the risks, what are the rewards, what is this business model. And so first, Garena, high level, they are a behemoth in mobile and PC games. They're effectively, they could be their own standalone public game company with over 500 million quarterly active users, 50 million paid active users, and there's just so much to peel apart here. Like, one is esports. They operate the largest mobile game professional league in Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Brazil. And they've just packed, like pre-COVID, they just packed arenas filled. They host competitions each year where you can get live streaming viewership in the millions, people watching these tournaments that they throw on. And you can see some of the games that they have. Like Free Fire, Arena of Valor, League of Legends, Speed Drifters. And so there's a lot of cool stuff here, but how do they monetize it all? And the answer is that it's generally a freemium business model, generally, where you download and play a fully functional game. And so it's super easy access. They're democratizing the access to game, generally through mobile. They do have some games that are specific where it starts off with a PC platform or a different console platform, but a lot of their games take a mobile focus or mobile exclusively. And you start with this fully functional freemium model. And then if you want to enhance the game, you want to get exclusive content, and you want to personalize your avatar, uh, that is going to cost up. If you want exclusive content, that's going to cost up. Is it going to cost you an arm and a leg? No, because the way these models work is, if you get scale, you can charge just a little bit, like a buck or two, and then spread across tens of millions of people, and you have a real business model. And that's sort of the part of the attraction here. And it's also like we're living in this age where you have friends around the world, and you may want to have bragging rights. There's always a hierarchy of like, hey, look how cool I am. And so you gotta, look at this guy. He looks pretty intense, but like, maybe you want this wolf costume and you want to pay a little bit for that, or you're feeling like wearing pink that day. So there's all sorts of ways to monetize this business. And think of the sweet bragging rights. Like, you play in this tournament, and then you can, if you win enough of these things, you can redeem it and get this exclusive things that none of your friends have. And like, booyah, I've got the thing that's on fire over here. Do you have it? And maybe it creates additional functionality in the game, like boom goes the shotgun. That's much louder boom than your shotgun. Stuff like that. As you can tell, I haven't played a lot of these games, and for me, a lot of this is learning about it firsthand, or excuse me, learning about it for the first time as I'm reading about it. Um, but it's super exciting to see, and that they are really building out a whole ecosystem here. Do they create all of their content in house? And the reason why this is an important question is, you need to think about the economics. The reality is, like, if you own all of the content of a game, your economics are going to be much better. If you're going to license the content from a different publisher, then the economics will be much different, because maybe you're bringing access to a certain market that publisher wouldn't naturally tap, or wouldn't naturally know how to market to, and that's your specialty. You can provide the marketing, the customer support for that market that this US publisher might not have. So that's why it's important to assess, like, who's creating this content, who owns it. And the reality is, they're opportunistic when it comes to content ownership. Some is in-house, some is by partnership, and some is through acquisition. Free Fire, it was developed entirely in-house. We'll get to Free Fire in a moment, because it's so important to understanding the C story. Other games like Arena of Valor, League of Legends, Speed Drifters, they are the exclusive operator, but the content was developed by a studio within Tencent, which is a major behemoth in China that operates like some super apps in China. I can go into Tencent on another video. If you leave a note and you ask me to, I'll be happy to do so. And so they actually obtained, in November 2018, exclusive first right of refusal to publish some of Tencent's games in Indonesia, Taiwan, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore. And that's sort of part of their core market: Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Brazil. Why is it so important to see Tencent, which is multiples of their size, giving this sort of contract with C, where they're saying, hey, this content we develop, you're going to get first right of first refusal to develop it and market it in these markets? And it means one, like, first of all, you need to understand Tencent owns a good amount of C stock. So there is sort of an alignment of interest. But two, and this is probably the more critical component that you need to recognize, I feel like as an investor, is that it means they've done an exceptional job executing in what is otherwise a wide diversity of markets. Southeast Asia, it's not like you have one common language. You have a bunch of different countries, different cultures. So if you're able to show that you're able to execute in this region and say, hey, we're going to succeed in Indonesia, we're going to succeed in Taiwan, in Thailand, in the Philippines, and we're going to build out the infrastructure to succeed in all these different countries. That is an important signal to someone like Tencent, where it's like, hey, we don't necessarily have the specialty in that. Our strengths are in China. Let's partner with someone that already has. And so that's an important signal in terms of what C is developing. And then also, Call of Duty was an example of a company where because they went mobile first with Free Fire, they were able to help Activision Blizzard, which is a major U.S. game publisher developer, launch Call of Duty Mobile and launch them in these regions. So it's really interesting to think that Activision would partner with C. Activision has been around the scenes for decades, where C has only been around for much shorter time frame, years as opposed to decades. So, it's interesting to see these partnerships. Dauntless was an example of an acquisition of a Canadian company called Phoenix Labs. So I would say, like, Garena is going to take the management and see the Garena management. They're going to be opportunistic about where can they get good content and do it at the right price, and where can they have a value add for their partners. So, you see all these different games. You know that each of them have different economic appeals. Contracts with a partner are going to have very different economics than something that you own entirely. So, what's actually moving the needle for Garena? And the answer is Free Fire. Free Fire by far is the biggest driver of the economics here. Free Fire recently hit 100 million daily active users. It's the top grossing game in Latin America and Southeast Asia across both iOS and Android. It's the third most downloaded game worldwide, which is pretty amazing. And it's a battle royale game for anyone who hasn't played it. I wasn't familiar with it until I started researching C over a year ago. And it's along the same lines as Fortnite and PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, but started off exclusively on mobile. And when you start off exclusively on mobile, it's a different gaming experience. You need to figure out how to make sure the graphics are just right, the how you pressing the buttons are just right, that there's no disadvantage of a mobile user versus a desktop user. It's a completely different setup. So by starting exclusively on mobile, they were able to get a different setup here. But it's more than just a game, Free Fire. And I'm going to walk through. I sort of did a high level overview of Garena. Now let's filter this down on Free Fire so you can see what I mean by how it's not just a game publisher, it's an ecosystem. So for example, they had the Elite Pass Rampage 2, which is this exclusive content that you have to get access to. Like, how much does it cost to get access to? It costs 499 diamonds. And with while the elite bundle will cost the players 999 diamonds. And you have these different versions, and you can win these different prizes. And I'm like, diamonds, like, and in order to earn diamonds, you can, it's part of the in-game play, or you can buy diamonds for like pennies on the dollar. And so, first of all, like, I love the stunning art, and I'm just constantly impressed with how good the graphics have gotten so far. And I mean, hey, you can check out my video on Unity. Unreal is their top competitor to Unity. So I'd watch the video on Unity, because that's the direction we're heading in, where you see this stunning art, and you're like, wow. And but anywho, so, like, but I love the psychological tricks that all these games play, where it's never in the local currency or in dollars that you're exchanging these things for. It's always some sort of theoretical good, like 499 fictional diamonds. And diamonds, you're like, oh wow, diamonds are worth a lot. And then when you're like, I can buy 499 diamonds for pennies on the dollar, like, this seems like a great deal. So I just love, and then plus like they have promotions on how many diamonds you can get at certain times, and like you win this game or you play at this time, then you'll get these diamonds, and you can get other types of diamonds that have special exchange rates. So it's really interesting to see. It's definitely, you do get a little bit of psychological tricks going on, like going at the poker table. No one ever is playing with dollar bills; they're always playing with poker chips, and there's probably the same element here. But how else is this sort of an ecosystem, where you're getting all these other people to play, like, hey, with diamonds, and what's going on here? And so what I love is the fact that they have their A game going on. Like they coordinated a crossover, a culture crossover with Netflix, where they would have a you'd get these skins just by logging in. So your character could get a skin that looks like one of the characters from Netflix's TV show Money Heist, and you get these skins for free. Um, and they have a game that's linked directly with Money Heist, which is a top show on Netflix. I've never seen Money Heist, but I think you can get what the premise is based on money flying around and people wearing masks. Um, but it's just brilliant, like what they're doing, the tactics that they're doing, where it's all about creating habits, repetition. Like if your wallet, if your account, if you converted some cash into diamonds, these fictional diamonds, you're going to sit with them. If you get into the habit of logging in every day because there's just cool stuff, you're creating a habit where you're just going to be keep doing it day after day after day, and maybe after X number of days you're more inclined to buy a certain thing. And here it is, by just giving away free stuff, like, hey, this cool panda suit that's tied to this panda heist skin, that you get just for logging in. More people are going to make it a habit to keep playing Free Fire. It's pretty incredible, and they've done other things where they worked with charities, and they have James Rodriguez facing David Ospina in Free Fire for the Children, where there was a charity tournament. Each of them had their own Free Fire teams, and it was streamed, and it got tons of viewers, and it raised a bunch of money for a good charity. And so it's they are just playing their A game of getting an ecosystem of people interested. Like, oh man, I know this person, or I know this content, and I'm gonna watch this, and because I like Money Heist, I'm also gonna play this video game. How else is this sort of an ecosystem? Is like another example is they're working in India. This actor Amal Parashar, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it, but he produced with Garena a series of videos highlighting Free Fire key features in terms of how to play the game. And the video went viral with like around 40 million YouTube views. By the way, like I'm excited when I get a couple of thousand people watching my videos. So like 40 million people watching, Free Fire videos. And that marked their launch into India. So they are doing their A game to make sure, like, hey, this cool guy is playing this game. If you like soccer, well, these guys are doing it. This actor is doing it. Like, you get involved, and by the way, your friends are, and you're going to show your friends this cool stuff you acquired. And how else is this potentially an ecosystem? Also the esports aspect that I already talked about, where you create a tournament where anyone can tune in, and you have prizes to the tune of a few $1,000s. Like, their max prizes, you're not talking millions of dollars. You're talking about like $10,000 for the top prize, and you get like these hardcore teams in India and Thailand, and like 20 million views across all their platforms watched this Asia All Stars tournament. And it's just amazing. Like a few $1,000s, but like tens of millions of people interested in the game. You create this global fervor of like, oh man, I hope my home country wins, and like we're gonna play, and oh, maybe I can compete. So this is just amazing. Like, it's amazing what they're doing to keep it going. It's amazing what they're doing to get the interest, and to just build this exceptional business. So I understand all this investment to keep it going. Like, just add more gasoline to the fire. But how sustainable is a video game model, especially when you're concerned, like, hey, is this just a one-hit wonder, like where you have one big game drive all your success? And the reality is, we've seen this before. And for those interested, how long can this all last? How long can Garena have success primarily driven off of Free Fire? and no one knows for sure how long. But it's worthwhile to look at World of Warcraft. And I actually played Warcraft and Warcraft 2 many years ago. I loved it. StarCraft was a lot of fun too. But Warcraft, like that was one of my first true loves. Um and even though my brother consistently kicked my butt at it. Consistently. I don't think I ever beat him once in heads up games, but you know what? That's okay. That's what happens when you're a younger brother. Um, but so Warcraft is amazing. Um, and World of Warcraft, it was announced in 2001. It was released in 2004. It was once the world's most popular, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Where it had its peak of about 12 million subscribers in 2010. So like, whoa, released in 2004, but peaked 6 years later. That's really important to think about from in terms of how long can a franchise like this last. And then now, fast forward a decade from 2010 when it peaked, and estimates are that there are 2 to 5 million, subscribers still to the World of Warcraft franchise, which is amazing that you still have this legs like 2004, 16 years later. Um, and it's still a top franchise for Activision Blizzard, where the World of Warcraft game generated. They don't say the exact detail. They lump it in with Call of Duty and Candy Crush, but they say it's like nearly 70% of their revenue is those top three games, which is pretty mind blowing. So like ballpark, this is still a $1 to $2 billion franchise, which is just like once you get something that has that sort of stickiness, and I honestly I don't think World of Warcraft, had the A game that Garena is doing, like with these esports tournaments and like the Netflix tie-ins and the like, oh, this actor's doing this on YouTube. Like they they're doing a different game, like different league. And the fact that World of Warcraft, 16 years later is still running, generating mega dollars, that does have really big implications for Free Fire, in my opinion. Um, so Free Fire was launched in 2017. So, you should have years, I would think, of this being a cash cow, and maybe it doesn't even peak for years from now, even though it's already like this behemoth, tens of millions of users, you know tens of millions of paying users, paying the couple bucks here and there for an exclusive pass to play Rampage 2, this special journey that you do with Free Fire. Does it have an unrivaled value proposition? That's tougher to answer. But I would think like once you deposit, like once you make your first exchange or you're buying, X number of diamonds, are you really gonna be switching it up to say, hey, I'm gonna go play Fortnite or play something else? And plus, maybe you get your friends, and you really do have this ecosystem effect of like, hey, my pals after school, we always go play Free Fire, and that's what we do. And so there is, it's tough to exactly say like, hey, this should be a lot bigger years from now. And I would say this is of the different segments when I think about C as an investor, this is probably the harder one to underwrite what it looks like 5 to 10 years from now. Partly because, it does depend on like, is it possible that they get another blockbuster? Like they do have first right of refusal on Tencent's content. Like, could there be another one that in the next 5 years that Tencent's like boom, and then they get this? Plus, they just acquired this Canadian company, Phoenix Labs. Like maybe Dauntless turns out to be a smash hit when it rolls out on the mobile platform. So like there's a lot of different outs here that you don't just need to have to be a world. Just like Activision or Blizzard was just like everyone was worried. Oh, this is just one big franchise, but then slowly, oh, you get Call of Duty, oh, you get Candy Crush. There is that potential here for Garena as well. I think I've talked a good amount about Garena. Let's move on to Shopee. So Shopee is a consumer to consumer and business to consumer online marketplace. And you can see all their different markets here: Indonesia, Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Brazil. So Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Brazil. And the three key things that they highlight on their website is a guarantee that you get your orders or you get your money back. There's a trustworthiness of that. You got to read the ratings. The ratings aren't going to be a bunch of baloney. You're not going to be getting 5 stars on something that's actually a 1 star. You can contact the sellers if there's any problems, and that it's free for all. They're democratizing, the shopping experience in what is otherwise known as these developing countries. And so the reason why these aspects of the value proposition are so important is because this is the first time many of these folks are coming online. This is the first time they've ever done e-commerce. And so it's really, really, really important that it goes well. You don't want an experience where someone's buying something and you just don't trust it. You don't trust, the counterparty, or you get a bad experience. And so when you have a country where people are going online for the first time, or they're shopping for the first time, having a guarantee saying like, look, you're going to get what you want, otherwise we're going to refund you, that's so important. Now this is also, all of this sort of behavior is leading to, Shopee being really unprofitable right now. That's something we'll talk about in a little bit, but let's dig in more into in terms of what is Shopee, what's their value proposition. And Shopee is ranked the number one in the shopping category for app downloads, user activity, and time spent. And you can see what's going on. It's, anytime, anywhere shopping, convenient shopping, and discovery across a wide product assortment. You can see all these different things. It's reliable, it's secure, a lot of different payment options. For a lot of folks in cash societies, it's hard to do this. How are you going to figure out a way to make these payments? There's a social aspect to see if your friends are paying for it or what's being recommended for you. And then from a seller perspective, it's easy to use. You can access it on PC or smartphone. They have a network of logistics for you to be able to tap into on how you're selling things. How do you get payment? Analytics for, hey, what's driving sales. So there's this whole beautiful ecosystem of what's going on with Shopee. And the fact that it's ranked number one is an important data point for you to think about as potential investors. So let's see what it looks like, like what the Shopee product actually looks like. And you can see on, a smartphone, or on a mobile phone, you can see, like, hey, you can chat with someone, you can see what's popular, what's trending. They have flash sales where you can see like X number is going to be up, now it's sold out, like that sort of thing, where it's these sort of pressure tactics of, hey, this is how many have sold so far, and boom. There's also these brand names, which, it's very region specific. It depends on where you live. You're going to see very different brands in Indonesia versus Thailand, for example. And you're also going to see very different trends. What's popular, and there's also this social aspect where you can, see what your friends are recommending or what different sellers are recommending to you. And so that's, it's a different experience than what many of us have grown up using Amazon, the desktop experience. And here you have a whole generation that's jumping the desktop and going straight to mobile, where it's more about flash sales, social e-commerce, and the ability to easily chat with the seller. So there's multiple elements that are very different than what you've seen in the US specifically, but you can see how this is playing out in Southeast Asia. So you can also wonder, like, how are they going to monetize all of this? And it's through a couple of different ways. Part of it is, let's have return on investment driven ad spend, where, based on you listing your products and you paying, Shopee to list it a certain way, or to put ads for this product or certain keywords. If a transaction goes through, then, it's going to cost you. So you do have this sort of aspect. Another big aspect is commissions, or it's effectively a take rate. X dollars in gross merchandise value, and they're going to get X percentage of it, which is steadily going up over time as they have more advertising, as they, scale this business. Also, value added services, like helping a merchant monetize and grow their platform. What advertisements should they be using? What logistics services should they be using? And they also have a direct sales model where they buy things directly and then sell it, have some sort of markup. So you can see, like, they are tapping into multiple different ways to monetize this. How big is the opportunity? And this picture was from a few years ago. I actually, most of these Shopee charts were from a few years ago. They haven't updated their deck in a while. But the reality is, like, there are several different markets here, each with very different cultures, different languages, and different opportunities. So it's easy to screw up, but if you're able to execute like they're doing, it suggests you're figuring out a playbook that very few have succeeded in doing. Because this is not easy to say, hey, we're going to have customer support in each region that's used to the different cultures and the behaviors of each different region. And when I see this and I hear that they're growing pretty much across all their different regions, it gets me super excited. But when I see this also, I'm like, man, how do I think about their potential? Do I need to go, country by country? That's probably the best way to do it. But let's do a back of the envelope here. You could see this was from a few years ago. They're penciling out $3 trillion GDP across all these countries. Um, and it's probably a little bit more since then. 600 million populace. Clearly, if you look at Indonesia, that's probably the biggest component of it, which is about 1 trillion GDP, about 40% of Shopee's business, maybe a little bit more. Um, how do you think about the potential? And let's look at Indonesia just as an example. And this is a report from JP Morgan. This was pre-COVID, or pre the lockdown in the United States. And so you could see, like, here they're penciling out Indonesia e-commerce market value of teens billion dollars, GDP of about $1 trillion. And when I'm thinking that, and I know that e-commerce is a couple percent in China and the US, and probably going to grow over time, because keep in mind, the whole point of e-commerce is that it's democratizing shopping. It's making it easier and more affordable for millions and billions of people. And so when I think of that, I think that percentage is only going to grow. But if I were just to take what is currently percentage of GDP for US and China to a place like Indonesia, it would suggest multiples of the current size. And then you also see, like, smartphone penetration is only like 40% versus like 95% in a place like the States. Internet penetration is well less than 50% in Indonesia. So as these, as more and more people in Indonesia are coming online for the first time, they're getting internet. This is going to be a game changer, and the market is just going to unlock, suggesting multiples higher that Shopee can tap into. But do they have an unrivaled value proposition against other marketplaces? And when it comes to marketplaces, it's super important to understand, like, marketplace dynamics are generally that the bigger you are, the stronger you are, the better your value proposition. And that means, the better the value proposition, because you have more buyers. If you have more buyers, you're going to get more sellers. If you have more sellers, you're going to get more buyers. It creates this sort of virtuous dynamic where the second and third tier markets just generally don't succeed as well as the top tier, where the number one is multiples the size of number two or number three. And so from their commentary of the second quarter, they're talking about how they're growing. Shopee Mall is 200% growth year over year. A lot of this is, a good amount of this is a COVID bump, but they were still growing very fast pre-COVID. And so they talk about, in terms of the competitive landscape, like, we are fast gaining market share. And while the deepening of penetration is ongoing at the market, we're the clear market leader. We're taking a disproportionate share of the market growth. And this is also manifest in our ability to further deepening monetization during this time period. And then they also go on, in terms of competitive landscape, I think we're in a very strong position, that we're growing fast and faster quarter on quarter even. And they talk about how, like, when other competitors are losing money and losing market share, it's going to be really tough for them to do another fundraising round. And so while I don't have a perfect crystal clear answer on, like, hey, here's why Shopee's value proposition is unrivaled. And unrivaled, looking at an unrivaled value proposition is so critical, because it means that you win over time. Like, if you offer a good or service that you simply can't get elsewhere, you're going to win, especially when you're tapping into a big market. So that's why I look for unrivaled value propositions. It helps ensure, getting good growth over time. And so when I think about that, like, I don't have a clear answer for why is Shopee an unrivaled value proposition. But when I look at the data and I see, that they're talking about growing so much faster than their competitors, and that they're taking market share, that's a clue that they have an unrivaled value proposition, especially when you understand these market dynamics of more buyers, more sellers, more sellers, more buyers. And it just makes it tougher and tougher for the second and third tier to compete. And there's also been surveys done that I sort of call out over here, where the satisfaction of Shopee users who use the Shopee platform are generally much higher than competing platforms like Lazada and Tokopedia. And so, like, that, and they do it by country. So okay, so what's their third segment, which is SeaMonkey? No, it's not Sea Monkeys, which was one of my first pets. But SeaMoney. So, what is SeaMoney? And so, it's a digital wallet to enable users with both Garena and Shopee. And this is super important because a digital wallet has the potential, it's not just a source of holding your cash, it has the potential of turning into a super app. If you're putting money someplace, that then you can like effectively this place not only can have a better interest rate because you don't have this infrastructure of like having all this retail branches, but then you can have like, hey, let's help you spend that money. And we're going to connect you with all these different ways of doing it. And so they have this thing called the AirPay app. That was the predecessor to the Pay Money or the See Money. And you can see like this is what they were thinking, where you have this e-wallet balance, you can link it with bank accounts, you can have food delivery, you can order tickets, you can do donations, you can get insurance, bills can be paid, you can do QR scanning. Like this could become like the everything app that you do. And so this has a lot of potential. And it's getting a lot of traction because it fits perfectly into their existing business models of Garena and Shopee. Because in Shopee, you have e-commerce shopping. Why not have a digital wallet? Same thing with Garena, where you have these little micro payments for these digital goods that are in game. Why not? So it's a perfect. It goes hand in hand, and so naturally they're seeing some incredible growth in C Money, where our mobile wallet total payments orders increased to more than 1.6 billion for the second quarter compared to 1 billion in the first quarter. That is tremendous quarter over quarter growth. And they talked about how in the month of July, this is second based on second quarter 2020, in Indonesia, excuse me, so July would be third quarter, but this is from their second quarter commentary. In the month of July in Indonesia, our mobile wallet services were used to pay for more than 45% of gross orders on the Shopee platform. As we skew up the C Money business, we are applying the same rigorous discipline and the focus on efficiency as the hallmark of C's business. Like, first of all, that's a big deal. To be able to say like 45% of our gross orders on the Shopee platform are growing through this wallet, just think about it. Like when you have credit cards, at least in the state side, like these credit cards can take a cut 2-3%, maybe even more. And so when you have a wallet, now that margin that can be going straight to Shopee, it can be going straight to C Money. The implications here are huge. If you want to think about you know e-commerce and digital wallets, what I'd recommend is you watch my video on Square, ticker SQ, because it highlights some of the other potentials that you can have when you start getting a digital wallet, and that's what they're doing with their Pay app. Or their Cash App, the Square Cash App. So how does C's, how what do C's? So I've talked about their three segments, and each of these segments are really interesting in their own way. Garena is very different than Shopee, but C Money is actually really interesting because it has this nice like connection to both of these businesses. What do C's financials actually look like? And if you look at their revenue as of the second quarter, nearly half, a little over half, is for digital entertainment. 40% is e-commerce, which is primarily Shopee. 1% is this C Money. So C Money really hasn't scaled at all yet. It is just starting off, but it's growing super quick, like growing 400, 500% this year. But it's really important to call it. This is revenue on a gross profit basis. So before any real expenses like research or sales and marketing, like 100% of their gross profit is from Garena. So Garena is the cash cow of the business. It has these really juicy 40% operating margins, like great business, but they're just losing lots of money. They're making huge investments in Shopee, in digital financial services, which is C Money. Like they're it's just huge. I mean, if you're losing money on a gross profit basis before all these investments, you're going to be losing tons of money on an operating basis. And that's what they're doing even now when they've had this nice bump up from COVID. They were growing, hyper fast before, but they went like light speed in the last quarter or two. And they're even with that, their consolidated run rate cash burn is still in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So like that's definitely something that you're going to need to think about when you're sizing up this company, because it's much tougher to size something up like this when it's you got one thing that's a cash cow, but this cash cow is really dependent on like this blockbuster platform and like a lot less so on all these smaller games. So you got Free Fire, which is the cash cow, it's driving this business. And then you got really fast revenue growth from Shopee, but like look, they want to encourage all these sellers to come on platforms. So they give all these incentives and part of the incentives is making the platform unprofitable. Is it possible they're not profitable in the future, even if they remove the incentives? You get all these sorts of questions. And so, it's really tricky to think about all these things. And so what are my thoughts on the valuation and how do we think about, the outcome of C stock in the years ahead? And you know what? That's the ice cream and the cherry on top. I've given you the meat and potatoes here. Like you can see what the company does, but that's where you have to go to unrivaledinvesting.com where you can see the exclusive content. You can see what I buy, sell, and hold each month. And like Journey subscribers have seen, what I've sort of penciled out for C, a hypothetical range. For about a month now where I've posted that. So that is for Journey subscribers. um, and Yeah, I mean, that's the reality is just finding one potential multi-bagger can change your personal life journey. And you can see that like C's already, I've been lucky that C has been one of them for me. Um, so if you're interested, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on Journey. And if you enjoyed this video, thanks so much for watching and make sure to hit subscribe. Thank you so much.